Welcome everyone to our AP Human Geography Live. I'm John from Marco Learning. This is our study guide pack. It is available for you all. We put the link in the description. There's 24 pages of stuff, which people, it's 9 p.m. Eastern the night before the test. You can't cram all this in, but if you do want a guide for unit 2 or one specific unit, that's available for you. So this link is in the description. Couple other quick things. Our session is going to be 1 hour tonight. We are here to help you through some of the key things that you need to know before the exam. And so we want to know in the chat what other subjects you are all taking and how we can help you really through this whole process. So I just want to make sure also in the chat, go ahead and confirm that you can hear us. I see us live on YouTube. And I'm going to invite Danny Sanchez to come on and say hello. So Danny, as you come on, you've been teaching AP Human Geography for the last 2 decades, helping out all these ninth graders.
Since the beginning of time.
since the beginning of AP Human Geography. Danny, what are some of the key things that we're going to be going over tonight?
Tonight, we're going to be going over just some general exam strategy, some key content components, things that are points of emphasis on the exam, and just trying to get ourselves settled, a little bit of like a namaste, like we're going to try to like not be overwhelmed going into the exam tomorrow. Yep. I know for a lot of the kids on here, it's their very first AP exam ever. Yep. So definitely excited about that opportunity for them as well.
But Danny, according to them, they're cooked, right? Everyone's cooked, roasted, deep fried, undercooked, pre-cooked, overcooked. And I'm worried about the cooking that has happened to all of the people who are here. So maybe everyone just as a quick little affirmation, a little namaste moment. If you can type in all capital letters in the chat, I am not cooked, because I think that will just help us clear the record of just the amount of cooking that has not happened. We are cooked. Okay, I'm cooked. Wow, I'm so cooked. I'm there. There it is. I am not cooked. No, it's a lot of I am cooked. This is going to be a huge debate for the night. Everyone, if you like this stream, go ahead and press that like button. Stay with us through this 1 hour session. If you're all well behaved, I'm going to bring on Marco, our founder, who is a fluffy, white, 65-pound Samoyed. Maybe I'll put some glasses on him. But Danny, I'm going to turn it over to you to guide us through our review for AP Human Geo and remind everyone that the link to our study guide pack is in the description.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you so much. Again, this is like an annual rite of passage. It's us, a whole bunch of mostly ninth graders, and trying to figure out how to get ready for this exam tomorrow. I do want to emphasize for you, I'm not going to reteach you the entire course in one day, in 1 hour, but we're going to get some critical points. And if this next hour with me helps you be able to get an extra 1 or 2 multiple choice questions right, an extra component of an FRQ right, it'll be worth it, because I don't think a lot of the students realize you've been so programmed over the years. You must have at least 90% and above to be successful, to be, worthy of a grade in this class. The reality is the AP exam is not scored like that. There isn't a set formula for how it gets scored. But essentially, like if you're north of half the multiple choice questions and you can get to about 3 to 4 FRQ points on each one, like you're going to be fine. Like you don't have to be perfect tomorrow. You just have to be good enough. All right. So that's what I wanted you to take away more than anything from the next hour that we're going to spend here. All right. So I'm going to share my screen with you so that we're able to get a good look at what it is that we're going to be covering today. Of course, this is our night before Human Geo review. And I do want to emphasize again, Marco's a real dog. And if you guys do what you're supposed to do, you'll get to meet Marco and be able to, interact with him a little bit, and he'll be able to wish you good luck. Because once Marco wishes you good luck, it's impossible to fail an exam. All right, things we're going to cover today. All right, we're going to be looking at, we already welcomed you. We gave you the study guide packet, stuff to look over. Our theme of the night is going to come up in a second. I'm also going to give you points of emphasis, like things that they're really hammering home in AP Human Geo, and multiple choice question reminders, FRQ reminders, and then some final thoughts for you. All right, let's get right into it. The theme for tonight is do not become a story. And here you see, this is not Marco. This is a Marco imposter, somebody pretending to be Marco with a bunch of little puppies saying, gather around the couch. I'm going to tell you about the time that somebody made a catastrophic mistake on the AP exam. Let's avoid becoming one of the stories that will be catastrophic and referenced in the future. Let's try to make sure that if we make a mistake, it's a simple mistake, it's an honest mistake, not something that is going to be like, oh no, I can't believe I messed that up. It's something I should have done well. All right. By the way, if I have a loud echoing effect, I teach at a boarding school at night and I'm here in the classroom by myself. And like, that's why you have like the reverberation. So I hope I don't sound like I'm like talking to you in an empty stadium. All right, let's continue on from there. And remember, don't become a story. I'm going to share a lot of stories with you. All right. So the first point of emphasis throughout this course, you've been hearing this since day one, is the concept of development. All right. Development is basically just code words for rich and poor, the rich world and the poor world. So we're going to be looking at the disparities that exist between the two. That is something that you've probably done all year long in every single unit. How does this impact the effect on the rich world, on the poor world, and how vastly different the same feature can be in the rich and poor world? I'm going to ask you a question in the chat because I can see the chat popping up. What are other names for the rich world? Tell me in the chat, what are other names for the rich world? So there's a little bit of a lag. I'll give it a chance to catch up. But please, what's another name for the rich world? There's multiple ones you can go to. All right, I got it here. I got MDCs, poor, more developed countries. All right, perfect. Love it. Nailed it. All right. What are other names for the poor world? What are other names for the poor world? Tell me in the chat. I got a little bit of a lag, so I'll wait a second for it to catch up. Very good. Very good. LDC, periphery, less developed country. There's one I'm waiting on seeing. There's one I want to see. I haven't seen it yet. All right. The one I'm waiting on, I have not seen it yet, but I will give it to you. It's developing. All right. Rich world developed. Past tense implies the fact it's already happened. Developing means it's in the process of happening. All right. Development, like I said, can be applied to every unit in the course. Farming in the rich world is very different from the poor world. We're going to talk about that. Industry in the rich world is very different from the poor world. All right. The level of services that are provided for people, very different in the rich world from the poor world, right? All of those are things that we're going to touch upon briefly here, but are the type of things you're going to have to be able to get on the exam. You're not going to take the AP exam tomorrow. You know, they never reference the differences between the rich world and the poor world. That's impossible. It's so much of this course that it's going to absolutely come up. All right. Continue with our points of emphasis. Let's talk about development and agriculture. So if you can tell me what is happening in that picture on the left, there's actually a bunch of things you can tell me, but what is happening in that picture on the left? All right. Agriculture. We know it's farming. Give me a type of farming. Give me any other, tidbits you can get from just that visual. All right, I'm seeing subsistence farming. Very good. Subsistence farming is somebody farms to survive. I saw somebody say slash and burn. Very good. I saw somebody say sustainable farming. Yes, slash and burn agriculture is very eco-friendly. All right, what part of the world does shifting cultivation, aka slash and burn agriculture, what part of the world does this happen? Let's see if you can give me that answer as well. I have the screen here. I got my phone here for the chat. Somebody said rainforest, tropical rainforest. Very good. It's going to happen near the equator. All right. Something else I want to point out here. Notice that the person farming is a woman. I want to emphasize that point for you. Gender issues are a huge theme throughout this class. One of the things that we're going to see is like the role of women, and when women are in agriculture and they're not working away from the farm, what is the impact of that? Yes, she might be surviving by engaging in subsistence farming, but she's not creating economic independence for herself. So that is what we're really going for here. Excellent job in the chat so far. All right. So again, it's farming in the poor world. It's shifting cultivation, aka slash and burn. It's a woman that's doing the farming. It is sustainable. I also want to point something else out. That's a lot of information we got from just one picture. What type of stimulus is this? Can you give me the word that goes with this? What type of stimulus is this? Tell me in the chat, guys. What type of stimulus is this? What type of stimulus is this? Let me get in the chat. Yes, it's a picture. What is going on here? What is the term I'm looking for? What type of data? What type of data is the picture? I'll give it a moment. Somebody's going to come up with this. Somebody got it. It is qualitative data, all right? Meaning you have to take a picture and get deeper meaning from it, all right? Quantitative data is the opposite of that. Quantitative data is just something that you can. All right, let's look at the picture on the right. What is going on in the picture on the right? What is going on in the picture on the right? It is commercial agriculture. Very good. Give me more information. All right. Mechanization of farming. Very good. It's going to be happening in the rich world. Excellent. All right. And this is grain farming. This is wheat farming. And a lot of this grain is being grown in the plains of the United States, even extending all the way up into Canada. A lot of this food is going to be exported to other parts of the world. Other parts of the world, particularly the poor world, count on the fact that they're able to buy cheap grains from countries like the United States, who is a major grain exporter. So again, machinery that's worth millions of dollars, all right? You know, people's visual of farming is typically that famous picture, American Gothic, where it's the dude with the pitchfork. Not in the rich world. In the rich world, it's some dude riding $1 million thresher, all right? So again, the idea here is from two pictures, we were able to see how food is produced in wildly different ways. One is manual labor, the other is heavy duty machinery. One has very little economic impact, that's just somebody surviving. The other one is a multi-million-dollar industry, you know, especially as we transition in America from like family farms, like corporate farms and all that. So ultimately, those are the main things I want to emphasize for you as far as farming in the rich world versus farming in the poor world. The next one I'm going to show you is not even two pictures, it's one picture, all right? And this is a picture, an aerial view in Mumbai in India, all right? What is happening in this picture? Can you identify just some of the things happening in this picture? Waiting in the chat. A South Asian city model, urban sprawl, squatter settlements is the main thing I really want. There's a lot of things going on in this picture, but the main thing is squatter settlements, right? In the background, we see high-rise buildings. These are probably wealthy people, people who can afford to live in high-rise buildings in the middle of the city. On the edges, you get this informal housing where people are living essentially with like whatever scrap materials they can find. A few sheets of plywood and a sheet of tin, that's your home. All right. And there's no legal claim to this land. You just set yourself up and say, this is my house now. One of the issues going on here, this is part of the global pattern of people leaving, particularly in the poor world, rural areas and going into the cities. I'm going to ask you in the chat, why are these people leaving the rural areas and going to the cities? What are they looking for? Tell me in the chat. Tell me in the chat, guys. What are they looking for? While I wait for those answers, something to realize about these squatter settlements, they don't have electricity. They typically don't have running water. So their electricity might be running extension cords from a light pole that they're stealing electricity from. And their bathroom, because they don't have running water, might be a bucket that they eventually dump into the river. Guys, if you lived like this in America, you would be referenced as like, being in a state of homelessness. In the poor world, this is just how these people exist. All right. So again, jobs, yeah, across the board, people nailed it. And one of the problems that these people encounter is that they go looking for jobs. And then when they get there aren't enough jobs, or the jobs don't pay well enough to find housing, or there isn't enough housing or enough housing that's affordable, and they end up living in conditions like this. Again, they don't own the land, they just set up shop here, and they're basically there until somebody, either knocks it down or moves it. And sometimes even like these things start stacking on top of each other. It's a shack on top of a shack. And this is a very dangerous situation for these people to live in. In these squatter settlements, you're essentially one earthquake away from a devastating impact on these people's lives. All right. Let's continue from there and shift now to manufacturing. And what you see on the left, all right, is a visual of manufacturing. And I would tell you this is Indonesia. And on the right, this is manufacturing in Germany. So I'm going to ask you, what is happening in the picture on the left with the manufacturing in Indonesia? All right, what is happening there on the left? All right, outsourcing, very good. A lot of manufacturing that used to be in the United States has now been shipped overseas. Something else, somebody referenced low paid workers, cheap labor. That is one of the reasons that a company like Nike, which is based in Oregon, is going to manufacture their shoes in a place like Southeast Asia. Indonesia is big for them. Vietnam is big for them. And the reason they do that is because they can get away with paying one of these factory workers a couple bucks an hour. And that is how these people survive, and they'll accept it. In the United States, a factory worker doing this type of work would expect $25 to $30 an hour. So for a company like Nike, it's cheaper to literally to manufacture it on the other side of the planet, transport it thousands of miles to North America or to Europe, and then to sell it at the profit that it would be to manufacture it in the United States with American skilled labor. Speaking of skilled labor, I gave you a hint for the next one. What's going on the right there? What is going on in that manufacturing in Germany? What is going on with that manufacturing in Germany? All right. Skilled labor, making a car, mechanization. There's a lot of machinery involved in this process. There's one word I'm looking for. I don't know if you can make it out. This is a BMW that they're working on. When we hear BMW, what type of car are we thinking? There's a word I'm looking for. It's a BMW. So what type of word am I looking for? And yes, I keep seeing bulk gaining, which is accurate. Like cars do get physically bigger. Multiple people hit it. It's a luxury good. The rich world makes luxury goods. And that's a significant thing to remember, because you might outsource the manufacturing of sneakers, but you're not going to outsource the manufacturing of a $90,000 car. People who are buying that type of good want the confidence in knowing that it was made in Germany, in the United States, in Japan, in order to be considered truly a luxury good. All right, let's move forward from there and now shift to scale. And this is one that throws people for a loop because of the way that can be interpreted, right? So scale is going to be identifying the difference between local, national, regional, and global scales. There are different subcategories within those. You can be more specific, but scale is basically understanding the impact of something. Is this a local impact? Is this a regional impact? Is this a global impact? All right. Also, Something else to identify is going to be a scale of analysis of a stimulus. And that is one that just throws people for a loop, that term, scale of analysis. You're going to see this on the exam tomorrow. I don't know if it's a multiple choice question. I don't know if it's going to be an FRQ subcomponent, but ultimately what you're going to be looking for is, can you look at the data and figure out what the scale of analysis is? All right. Let's go to the next slide and look at the impact of scale. Guys, I grew up in North Jersey. I'm a pizza snob. I want only the very best in pizza. And there's a reason I showed you that visual that's on the left. This is one of the best pizzas in New York City. If you ever visit New York City on 14th Street, go to Joe's Pizza. All right. Here's the thing. Notice some of the things I said there. If you're ever in New York City, go to 14th Street. Guys, what is the scale for a place like Joe's Pizza in New York? What am I going for here? What is the scale there? What is the scale there? It is very local. It is hyper local. Like that's the spot. Sometimes that's a picture of it, not with a line out the door. Normally there's a line out the door. That is a local impact. That's your local pizza shop. In contrast, slide to the right, Domino's is a global impact. They're a multinational corporation, transnational corporation. They do business all over the world. And like their biggest issue isn't making good pizza, it's making sure the stock stays at a certain price. All right. And again, I'm not here to it's the views expressed are not those of Marco Learning. It's just the Eddie Sanchez. All right, guys, here's the reality. All right. Joe's Pizza is that local people from the area are going to get that pizza. People who are not from that area know about it, but when they're in that area, they go to Joe's Pizza. Domino's, I could call Domino's Pizza right now and have a pizza delivered almost anywhere in the country or the world for that matter. And that's the reality. Locally, Joe's Pizza is a staple in New York City. But on the right, Domino's, like nobody's like very people are gonna say my favorite pizza in the world is Domino's. Like that's not what they're known for. But if you bought Domino's stock 40 years ago, you're a very wealthy person because they have grown that much over time. All right. The next one I'm going to hit you with is going to be the scale of analysis. All right. And the scale of analysis that I want to show you here. Give me 1 second. I just have a little glitch on my screen. All right. Fixed it. All right. The scale of analysis that I want to present to you, all right, is looking at data from the last presidential election. All right, 2020, the Trump-Biden election, we'll use the standard color associations with blue being for the Democratic candidate and red being for the Republican candidate. So Biden Democrat, Trump Republican. All right. The very first thing I want to say to you is you need to look at the visual and look at the data point. All right. On the left, we have one breakdown. On the right, we have another breakdown. It's the same election. It's the same data. But what you're going to realize is, depending what the scale of analysis is, you're going to have a very different interpretation of what actually happened here. All right. So on the left, I'm going to ask you, what is the scale of analysis for the map on the left? Tell me in the chat. What is the scale of analysis? All right, very good. It is a state level. It is a state scale of analysis. On the right, and a couple of people jumped the gun on me, but what is the scale of analysis on the right? What is the scale of analysis on the right? Oh, it's sorry, I just got an ad pop up on my feed. Give me a second here. All right. It's local, and a couple of people said it's county. All right. So those are the right answers. And I want to show you something here. On the left, state, which can also be called sub-regional, because you're looking at different areas within the regions of the United States. And ultimately here, I want to present something to you. if you were looking at this map and it didn't have the numbers telling you what each state was worth, you'd be looking at the amount of land area. You'd have no other information. You'd be like, oh, well, the guy in red probably won. Well, we know the guy in red didn't win. The reason that it's important to have different scales of analysis is to be able to look to the right and look at that more specific data. Wait a second, there's even more red on this map. What does that mean? Does that mean the guy in red won by a lot? And the reality is this. The reality is this. What is the difference between the areas that voted blue, Democrat for Biden, and the areas that voted red, Republican for Trump? What's going to be the big difference between the red areas and the blue areas here? Let me get that one in the chat. And I've already got it. Excellent. All right. The thought process here is that blue is urban. Cities tend to vote Democrat. So, for example, there are states, a state like Illinois is almost all red physically, but ultimately, that area around Chicago is the overwhelming majority of the population of that state. So Illinois was very easily a Democratic state that went for Biden. So ultimately, what you're trying to interpret here is while there might be more red areas, the blue is much more densely populated. We also connected that to the voting patterns. And all of a sudden, because we have that more zoomed in view, you're able to see the county data. You get a much better understanding of that information, right? So the scale of analysis on the left is state, on the right is county, local, all right? That's what we're going for here. You're gonna see this on the exam. I cannot stress this to you enough, all right? If I had to like go to Las Vegas and bet, Mr. Sanchez, bet $10,000. I don't have $10,000 to bet, but bet $10,000. Will scale of analysis be on the exam tomorrow? I would be like, of course it's going to be on the exam tomorrow. All right, let's continue on from there. All right, more points of emphasis, sustainability. One of the big themes in this class is being eco-friendly, the idea of energy in the future. All right, what are we looking at in terms of preserving the environment long term? The first point I have here is building up economies without trashing the environment. That's one of the UN sustainable development goals. The idea that, hey, let's build up the economy without trashing the physical environment. The irony of that is, hey, that's how the rich world built themselves up and became the rich world, by being willing to trash their environment, right? Also, using resources without depleting them, making sure you're using enough to keep you going, but not so much that you wipe them out for future use. Preserving the environment, protecting the environment, not trashing nature. And lastly, energy alternatives. And what you see on the right here is a windmill farm, all right? What type of energy is being produced by wind turbines? I'll wait for it in the chat. What type of energy is going to be produced? Very good. It's going to be renewable energy. And that's one of the key things. Renewable energy is something we can keep going into the future. In contrast, non-renewable energy is very problematic because as we keep burning through it, we can't replace it. What is the most common type of non-renewable energy that we like burn through? What's another term that I want to get there? Fossil fuels is what I was going for. The idea that this, I always joke like, hey, like we run around, we drive around in cars powered by dinosaur juice. By the way, in case you never realized this, I might be turning your entire childhood upside down right now. There's a reason that the gas company in cars is called Dynaco, and their logo is a dinosaur, because the joke is it's dinosaur juice to be able to basically make our cars go vroom, vroom. All right, next point of emphasis is going to be gender issues. It's going to be the role of women and how it's critical to development. And I'm going to just say this very straightforwardly. All right. Countries that treat their women close, at least close to equal, those tend to be the rich world. Countries that make it a point to keep women down, that tends to be the poor world. There's a lot of factors that go into this, but at the end of the day, it's basic math. If you're telling half your population, we don't want you working, we don't want you to have financial independence, you're not going to advance yourself because you're literally limiting your labor force by half. All right. And here you see on the right, very well-known woman, Nobel Prize winner, Malala, who's known for advocating for education rights for women all over the world. Which leads me to, if I can break down gender issues for you into the most simplistic thing possible, a very complicated thing, and make it as simplistic as possible, it's the 4 E's. Educate, employ, empower, and elect. Let me talk you through each of those. When you educate women, you give them more opportunities for the future, right? That's right off the bat. Those opportunities typically come in the form of jobs. When you employ women, it gives them opportunities to establish financial independence for themselves. Next is going to be to empower. When women are in management positions, leadership positions, it helps elevate women all around them. And lastly, elections. When women are part of elections and they're part of the national legislative body, for us, it's Congress, right? That puts them in a better position as well. And it doesn't just put women in a better position. Like I said earlier, it puts the whole of society in a better position. One of the saddest stats that I like to present here with the election of women, right now in the United States, is the most representation of women we've ever had in Congress. You would assume, hey, like it'd be 50% because women are half the population. Right now is the best it's ever been. It's nowhere near 50%. It's actually 25%. So again, even we here in America have a long way to go in terms of making women more empowered and making them a more equal partner to men in society as a whole. All right, let's continue on from there. All right, let's go over some multiple choice strategy. First off, I want to tell you about how to attack the questions, how to approach the questions. All right, you're going to have 60 questions in 60 minutes. That comes up again in a minute. The first thing I want to say to you is read the question. And I want to emphasize, you may think, Mr. Sanchez, like that's your advice, read the question. Of course, I'm going to read the question. You know, not always. And I know this happens because I've done this. You start reading a question and you don't finish reading the question because once you start reading the question, you just assume what the rest of the question's going to say. You speed through the options. You pick the one you think is for the question you think you want to answer, and you realize later on that wasn't the answer, or worse, you never realize it. All right. So my suggestion to you is read the question, then read each answer option, then go back and read the question again. And the reason I say that is if you read the question and don't look at the options, sometimes seeing what options are available to you help open up your brain as far as understanding what they're trying to get at, which leads me to my next step in this process. Ask yourself, what is this question actually asking? What information are they trying to get out of me? All right. And a way you can see this, all right, here's an example. A multiple choice question says, which of the following is a pull factor? Obviously talking about migration. Guys, if they're asking you which of the following is a pull factor and they give you 5 options, what are they actually asking you? Who can tell me in the chat, what are they actually asking you? What are they actually asking you? They're asking you, which of these is a pull factor? What are they actually asking? Tell me in the chat. You gave me the definition. Something draws people to location. What makes somebody want to migrate? What attracts? All right, I'm going to give you an even simpler one. Which of the following is a good thing? That's it. Simple as that. Which of the following is a good thing? All right. But Mr. Sanchez, there's a couple of good things. Well, that's another strategy with the exam. It asks you not what's the right answer, what's the best answer. Ask yourself which of those are a better opportunity. All right. So that's what you're looking for here. What is this question actually asking? If they're asking about pull factors, which of these is a good thing? There's a couple of good things. Pick the best thing. And sometimes they're even as easy as this. They give you a chart. They ask you a question based off the chart. And I've seen things like this where they basically are saying, hey, which on this chart, what's the biggest number? I've seen that. So make sure that you are engaging with that information and realizing, oh, there's a chart here. They must have given it to me for a reason. Look at the question. How does it relate to the chart? Hey, they just want the biggest number. That's pretty simple. All right, let's continue from there. Easy mistakes to make on the exam. This is where story time begins. Focus on your bubbling. All right, the very first thing I want to say to you is if you skip a question, if you get to number 27 and you can't answer it and you skip it and say, I'm going to come back to it later, all right, you need to remember to skip it on your answer sheet too. Because there was a year where actually, he wasn't one of my best students. He was my best student that year. He skipped the question on the exam, forgot to skip it on his answer sheet. There used to be 75 questions. He gets all the way to the end and realizes I answered 75, but just bubbled 74, at which point he had that moment of horror of, oh my God, I messed up my bubble sheet. He has to go back, find where he made the mistake, and begin shifting all of his answers down. He eventually ran out of time, and he was not able to shift all the answers down. He ended up still passing the exam. He should have gotten a 5. He only got a 4 because he left about a dozen questions that he knew he had bubbled the wrong answer. The next one is another don't become a story. Bubble as you go. I had a student a few years ago come back about a year after the exam and say, Mr. Sanchez, I'm ready to tell you my story. I've been avoiding telling you this for the past year, but tell the freshmen so they don't make the same mistake I made. And I remember thinking, like, she was a really good student. She got a 2 on the exam. And I remember questioning, like, I would have said she would have got a 4 or 5. Why did she get a 2? She proceeds to tell me that she had the brilliant idea that she was going to answer all the questions in the booklet and then transfer it to the bubble sheet. That did not go as she planned. She finished the test, starts bubbling, runs out of time. She left about 20 multiple choice questions blank. She got a 2. There's no doubt in my mind that if she had answered those extra 20 questions, she might have gotten at least a 3, possibly even a 4 if she had done well on this. All right. Next, don't spend too much time on one question. 60 questions, 60 minutes. If you're more than a minute, move on with your life. Remember to skip it on the bubble sheet and continue from there. The next suggestion is to not ignore the stimulus. There's a major problem that I see for students. They're answering the question, but they have not looked at the map or the chart or the picture that is there in order to be able to tie everything together. If they've given you a map, chart, or picture, it's not there because it's pretty. It's there to help. Next, talking yourself into an answer. If you think, well, the right answer is B, but anytime there's a solar eclipse, and if you're standing in Wisconsin and you look at the angle of the sun just right, it can be D. You're talking yourself into an answer. Don't do that. All right. As a matter of fact, that's a general life advice. whether it be for dating or like taking a job or something like that. If you have to talk yourself into that situation, you're probably talking yourself into a poor situation. All right. Relationships should just work. Jobs should just work. It should be the right fit. It's the same thing with the AP exam. If you got to talk yourself into something, don't do it. Also, at the end, changing answers. Again, you went with B, you're probably right. Don't talk yourself into answering C. The only exception I will give you to this is the following. If you realize you made what I call a catastrophic error, oh no, I realize now because I looked at another question and one of the options triggered my memory, and you have that lightning bolt moment as you look at like the glare on my bald head from like the floodlight above me. All right. The lightning bolt hits you. All right. And you realize, oh, wait, I made a silly mistake. I interpreted this incorrectly. I better go back and be able to I better go back and be able to think about this the right way and therefore change my answer. So the only time you do that is if you realize critical system failure. I messed up the interpretation of this question and now I got it wrong. Only time you change an answer on multiple choice. All right. Next, FRQs. All right. The basics. You're going to have 75 minutes to answer 3 questions. You don't have to do 25 minutes, 25 minutes, 25 minutes. You can distribute your time accordingly. I always, there's a point I make later, but I'll give you the preview of that. Instead of going, 25, 25, 25, I normally take a couple of minutes from the one I know the least and transfer to the one I know the best. And the reason my suggestion to you is the idea of if you know you're going to be able to get out of the 7 points, if you can get to a 5 or 6 in one of them, and one of the other ones looks impossible, and you're just hoping to get to a 2, like don't spend. If something's going to give you 5 points, if something's going to give you 2 points, spend more time on the thing's going to give you 5 points in order to be able to secure that as best possible. All right. The way the exams are going to be set up, the questions should be 7 points each, A through G. Doesn't have to be that way. It could be A through F, and one of them is 2 points, but most likely A through G, each one is a single point. I also want to emphasize something for you. The easy points are worth just as much as the hard ones. So let me talk you through the easy action verbs, right? The easy action verbs are identify and define. Identify is be able to recognize or provide an example of something. There was a few years ago, where there was a map and there was several countries shaded in. Some of the countries are a little bit more obscure that not as many people know which one it was, but there was one that saved the day for everybody. And the one that saved the day for everybody is Madagascar. People knew what Madagascar was. Going back to their childhood, I like to move it, move it. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about, all right? I still like those penguins, all right? My point is this. If you have a map of Madagascar, if you have a map of the world and the only thing you recognize is Madagascar, but that's what they're looking for, hey, hit that button, answer Madagascar, one of the countries that fits this profile is Madagascar, period, move on with your life. Another one would be provide an example of a country that has a very high total fertility rate. And I'm going to present to you the country that has the highest total fertility rate. And that's going to be the country of Niger, where the average woman has like 6.7 children, all right? Which is way above the replacement rate. So again, they have a very high natural increase rate there. By the way, I just referenced the replacement rate. Can you tell me in the chat, what is the replacement rate that will maintain a population steady and level? What is that magic number? And I got several of them. All right. The correct answer is 2.1. If every woman in society is averaging 2.1 children, that will stabilize your population. And hey, tell me in the chat, what's the vocab word for when you have a stable population, when the birth rates and death rates are basically equal? What is that magic word? ZPG, very good. Zero population growth. Very good. Thank you, everybody. All right. So again, can you identify an example of something? Be able to recognize and provide an example. Define, they're trying to move away from, but it's still in the list of verbs you can see. Define, guys, human geo, vocab everywhere. You got to make sure you know your vocab terms. At the end of the day, you either know what accrued birth rate is or you don't. You know what the total fertility rate is or you don't. You know what slash and burn agriculture is or you don't. You need to know your vocab, all right? Please, if they ask you for an identifier define, these answers tend to be short. Don't fall into a trap that I've seen many times when I score these, all right? The kid talks themselves out of an answer. If it's identifier define, give them a sentence, move on with your life, save that extra time for the ones that are coming up next. Here, the harder action verbs. And I say harder parentheses because it's not harder. It's ultimately just, hey, it's a little bit more involved. There's a little bit more work. The first one, and I say here, you're looking at 3 to 5 sentences, so essentially a paragraph, right? This is not a rap battle. You're not going to drop the mic after saying 3 words and walk away. As a matter of fact, those are the most frustrating ones. And I'll get into that in a little bit with the idea of dropping the mic, all right? The very first action verb is describe, proving that you know a concept by providing details. And what do I mean by that? All right. Give the reader enough information to make them have zero doubt that you understand the concept. This is a story I've shared before. I'll share it again. When I was your age, oh God, I just the most ancient phrase ever. When I was your age. But when I was in 9th grade, I had a book report to do. And it was a verbal book report. You had 3 minutes, and I did it on an 1,100-page book. I did went through it quick. Here's my 3-minute summary of this 1,100-page book. I think like nailed it. I go back to my seat. Teacher says, stop. I don't think you read this book. I was like, what? I was offended by that because not only had I read the book, it was like my favorite book ever, still to this day. All right. Book I read in 9th grade. And one of the things that came up was she had read the book as well. So what did she do? She starts quizzing me in front of the entire class. And she said, well, what happens here? Boom, answer her question. What happens here? Boom, answer her question. And I'm able to provide enough details where she basically had to admit eventually, I guess you read the book. I think she still didn't believe me, but I knew I had given her enough information where she was not going to be able to question it and discount my grade. All right. Continuing from there, all right, explain. You must provide understanding of the concept and one more step. What does that mean? You basically start off as a describe, but you got to give more. The more can be use the word because or establish cause and effect. Say this, here's an example of one. Explain why families choose to have larger families in the developing world. And you can start off your answer, well, because they are primarily agricultural societies, and you say that, and then you finish it off with, all right, because they see the children as future laborers, as future workers. So it's the describe plus the extra step. Next, stretch your answer as far as you reasonably can. You don't want to word vomit onto the paper, just writing for the sake of writing. Please make sure that you're like saying just enough to get it right without over explaining and talking your way out of a point. I always equate it to like dating. You want to make sure you pay just enough attention that they know you're interested, but not so much attention that you become annoying. More life advice with your Uncle Sancho. All right. I like to joke. I'm the newest member of your family. I'm your Cuban uncle. All right. Let's continue from there. Next is compare. Find similarities or differences between two concepts. I like when we see this because, hey, you've been doing this since you were a little kid. Hot, cold, dark, bright. You know that. The one trap that I see that students fall into is, and I think I use this example every year, but I'll hit you with it again. I'm based here in Florida. Compare the climates in Alaska and Florida. If all you do is explain the heck out of Alaska's really cold or just Florida's really hot, but you don't say Alaska is very hot, but in contrast, Alaska's very cold. Hey, with global warming, who knows? But Alaska is very cold and Florida is very hot. You have to make the connection across both things. All right. Let's continue on from there. The last one's the most involved one. Explain the degree. It's the most involved of the action verbs. All right. It takes the most effort. I actually tell my students, if you see explain the degree, push it to the end, answer it last. It's going to take the most effort in order to be able to earn that point. And again, the easy ones are worth just as much as the hard ones. All right. You have to establish how much of a feature or model is present, and you have to explain the degree to which, and then you would have, I'll say something, explain the degree to which the glare off the top of my head is distracting you right now to a high degree because I'm zooming in, back here to a low degree. All right. So again, is there a lot of this or is there a little bit of this? All right. Also, you might have to say, how does this model apply in the real world? Years ago, in the pre-Danny times, before I even started teaching this class, there was an FRQ that had the von Thunen model scaled up to be the whole United States. And you had to kind of talk your way through how much it explain the degree to which this is accurate representation of farming in America. All right, let's continue on from there. Things to avoid on the FRQ. Answers that are too short. I can't tell you how many times I see somebody do a drop the mic rap battle style, nailed it. They wrote 4 words. They clearly know the right answer. It's the right 4 words, but they didn't support it enough. Answering something other than the prompt. This is another one. I've read things where I'm like, this is a great explanation of what the kid was hoping was on the exam, not what was actually on the exam. Next, not labeling the sections of the FRQ. I can't emphasize this enough to you, all right? The idea that you have, the way this is set up, you're going to have somebody in Cincinnati or in front of a computer having to grade a few thousand of these. You're the 1,247th one. What does that mean for you? If you just write one giant paragraph, you've made it that much harder for the person to find your answers. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Answer it labeled. You don't have to do them in order. You can rearrange them if you need to, like I said earlier. If you got explain the degree in B and it's going to take you 10 minutes to answer just that one, push it to the end and get the easier points. Also, not finishing your thought. I can't tell you how often I hear this. I'm going over the FRQ, giving instruction to my students. They go, oh, I thought of that, but I didn't write it. Guys, if it pops into your head and it's relevant to what you're answering, use it. It does you no good in your back pocket, saving it for next year's human geo exam. Also, not referencing the stimulus or looking at the stimulus deeply. I had a year, don't become a story. I had a student, the kid legitimately did not see the label across the top, said ethanol production in the United States. All right. Also, not focusing on what you know. Like I said earlier, if you know A, B, D, and E, really focus on answering A, B, D, and E, get the slam dunk points and then go for the ones that you're not as comfortable or sure in and see if you can steal a couple of those. All right. Something else to remind you of as we wrap up talking about FRQs, I want to see again, there's 3 of them. Don't become a story. I had a student one year not turn the page and see the 3rd FRQ. And I was looking at her and heard the conversation because somebody said, hey, what did you think about that last FRQ on farming? And she goes, what FRQ on farming? They were like, the 3rd one. And she was like, there was a 3rd one? At which point I like died inside because she's somebody who should have passed the exam and ultimately ends up, getting a 2. She left an entire FRQ blank. That's the equivalent of 25 multiple choice questions blank. Do not fall into that. There are 3 FRQs. Don't become a story. It's okay to not know something. It's not okay to become a story. All right. Some final thoughts from me tonight. If you don't know it by 10 p.m., you just don't know it. And for my people on the East Coast, we're winding down. You should be going to bed soon. For my people in, again, Central Time, you got an hour. My people on the West Coast, I got a bunch of my kids from the West Coast, a bunch of kids I tutor there. Guys, you got 3 hours, all right? Ultimately, if you don't know it by 10, you don't know it, get some rest and try to focus on being as ready for the exam tomorrow as possible, all right? Lastly, tomorrow, the exam is at 8 a.m. Please make sure you get there early. Don't try to cram content in the morning. If you are that kid that needs to look at something, look at easy reminders. A good easy reminder is visuals out of the textbook, pictures, charts, stuff like that. Don't read anything like, oh, okay. Anything that will help create a trigger for you, all right? Non-sugary breakfast before the exam. You don't want to have like a Snickers bar for breakfast and then fall out, 45 minutes because you've crashed and burned during the multiple choice, all right? Bring a snack for in between sessions. Again, maybe a granola bar, something like that. Something that'll give you that little boost so that you're not starving, but also won't be so sugary that you're fading in the middle of the 3rd FRQ. And I like this one. This is also just kind of my personality too. Man, relax a little bit. Talk to the funny kid before the exam. Try to put yourself in the best state of mind possible so that you're not walking in there with like your blood pressure's through the roof, your heart's doing this. Try to walk in as easy and as comfortable as possible. And I love the visual on the right with the beautiful Marco imposter face. But still, speaking of Marco, I want to invite John to come back in, and hopefully Marco will be making an appearance.
Yes, everyone. It's great to see you all. I'm John from Marco Learning. I've got the founder of Marco Learning right here, Marco. But we were close. We needed 100 likes to get there. We're at 75 right now. So I'm going to wait till we get to 100. Also, I want to see some sheep emoji in the chat and some clouds because Marco is made entirely out of sheep and clouds. Danny, to your point, all of our West Coast people, Mountain Time people, there is still a bit of time. Check out the study guide pack that we pinned to the chat and that we put into the description. Some of you are looking for FRQ reviews and other things. Remember, we've got a playlist on our channel with tons of reviews. So yes, give us all of those little sheep of just type the word sheep, I guess. And Marco, come on, do you want to say hi to everyone? Come on. There we go. So here let me unblur real quick. And you said talk to the funny kid before the exam. Here he is.
The CEO.
Hey everyone. And the problem with him too, Marco, tell them you are not cooked. Nobody's cooked. You are undercooked and frozen and just whatever this is, because I got people telling me they're burnt, they're roasted, but Marco doesn't believe that. He thinks you're going to do great. And he thinks that you should trust yourself. And as you said, Danny, take a chill pill and enjoy the test. So yes, Danny, you have been a teacher for 20 years. You've graded thousands of real AP exams, and you are live streaming with a canine right now. So good luck,
I went to college.
Yes, you have degrees, you can read, but Marco has none of those things. And here he is. He's actually tired. Is it time for bed, Marco? It's time for bed. Yep, that's a time for bed face. So everyone, with that, we're going to go ahead and say thank you all for joining our live review. Marco wishes you uh, a really great exam tomorrow. And seriously, for those of you taking other AP exams, we look forward to seeing you as you're getting ready. Best of luck. Get some sleep, everyone.